We've all come to be familiar with many issues of preservation. Archives, libraries, and museums in areas of conflict suffer from the same problems, but often on an accelerated and larger scale. When considering how best to preserve a collection in an area of conflict, it is important to plan for the entire disaster cycle. This cycle consists of three parts: pre-conflict, peri-conflict, and post-conflict. Consider these potential problems. There is often violence leading up to a conflict. In some cases, one culture tries to oppress and exterminate another. This can have a huge impact on cultural artifacts. During conflict, weapons, such as missiles and artillery, can cause significant damage to structures that house materials, as well as to materials themselves. When a structure is damaged, the materials inside are exposed to the elements, to animals, and to people. Even damage that occurs naturally, rather than as a result of the conflict, cannot be prevented or treated properly if staff have been forced to evacuate the area. After conflict, materials are particularly susceptible to looting and further decay until staff are able to return to the site. But looting and destruction by people is always a danger during times of conflict. Now that we've covered the threats to preservation in areas of conflict, let's talk about some solutions. The Hague Convention of 1954 is an important starting point. Inspired by the mass destruction caused by World War II, this convention brought together governments, militaries, and cultural heritage professionals to try to prevent future destruction of cultural property during wartime. As part of UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, these parties developed a symbol to mark heritage sites so that bombers could see from the air what to avoid. Unfortunately, the terms set forth by the Hague Convention are difficult to enforce. Some countries begin to use the symbol as a target, so it has fallen out of use in practice. However, it inspired the creation in 1996 of the International Committee of the Blue Shield, an organization which describes itself as the cultural equivalent of the Red Cross. Some countries, including the United States, have their own national chapters. These organizations raise awareness of the importance of cultural property, coordinate with governments and militaries to protect cultural property during conflict, and advise and assist with emergency planning in conflict situations. In 1999, UNESCO produced the second protocol to the Hague Convention. This protocol emphasizes that cultural institutions should incorporate armed conflict into their disaster plans during peacetime, rather than waiting for an emergency situation to occur. Here are some things to consider. The collection. It is important to start with an inventory of your collection and the value of each item. Which items are most valuable to your institution? Which items should be saved first, if you had time to choose? How big are the items? Can they be transported easily? The environment. How can you secure the building in the event that evacuation is necessary? Are there spaces in the building to hide items which cannot be removed from the premises? Although not effective against bombs, even these simple precautions can deter looters. What other actions can you take to protect items that must be left behind? In 2003, the Iraq Museum placed foam rubber padding around the large objects that could not be moved, just in case they were knocked off walls or shelves. At the very least, covering items might protect them from dust or shrapnel caused by nearby explosions. It is also important to consider the alternate storage facility in case you do have time to relocate part of your collection. How far away is it from the area of conflict? How long will you be able to use the space? Armed conflicts can last for years. Is it a controlled environment? How can you mitigate potential risks? The staff. Who will be responsible for coordinating the effort? Who knows the location of the alternate storage facility and any hiding places on the premises? Who is responsible for collecting the keys? In Iraq, keys left in the building were found by thieves and used to access previously secure areas. The pre-conflict phase of the disaster cycle is the most important intervention point for preserving materials, and it all starts with a disaster plan. But once you've given some thought to the collection, the environment, an alternate storage facility, and the staff, what else do you need to do? It is important to re-evaluate the plan on a regular basis as your collection changes and especially as staff members come and go. This would also be a good time to review related plans for other emergency events. What about the other phases of the disaster cycle? During a conflict, the most important thing you can do is follow through with your disaster plan as much as possible. Make sure you keep a copy of your disaster plan and other important documents, such as your inventory list, with you, or at least in a safe place. Keep apprised of the situation and don't try to re-enter the conflict zone until it is safe. At this point, there is very little you can do to actively preserve your collection. Post-conflict, the first priority should be to assess the damage. Check the collection against your inventory list. Make note of anything that is missing or damaged. Report missing items to authorities in your area in case the items turn up elsewhere. Prioritize other actions, such as repair or recovery, based on your disaster plan.